ad-lib freestyle, or we do a
Yeah,
Q&A? Or...
yeah, you look great. First of all, look relaxed. You look like, man, you got the tropical background style. Look like humbly, sir. Well, yeah. So let me just say, we wanted you to kind of like give an update on what the projects you've been working on, and we wanted to give it to you as a freestyle. And I'll be candid, the way you do your YouTube videos where you're like teaching is, I don't think anything. I mean, you're the type of person that hits the points without somebody like prompting them. So I think if there's a stream of flow of activities that you see as it relates to Veritasium, the project you've been working on, as well as the climate that we all are in, as far as folks in this industry of blockchain, I think that's contextually. But man, whatever's on your mind is going to be insightful. Like you're going to put us like 6 months ahead at least. I'm talking about practically 6 months, but probably even further than that. So please, bro, Reggie, break it down. Like make it plain. This is like make it plain, humbly.
Okay, so this is what I'll do. I'll go give a little preamble for anybody who doesn't know who I am, so at least they know who's talking. Um, I'll give a quick definition of what I think the topic matter is, technically and socioeconomically, okay, and then geopolitically, because not all of these are touched tangentially or together. And then I want to comment on some of the statements that I heard earlier. I can't remember who said it, but it doesn't really matter because this is not about who said it. This is about my opinion on what was said. And then, if possible, Q&A, because I like to have a conversation more than just, sitting on a bully pulpit and talking.
All
So,
right, no doubt.
okay, so my name is Reggie Middleton. I'm Bison. Uh, right about the time as the brother Sinclair here. I was always an entrepreneur. I spent maybe nine months in corporate America as a W-2 wage earner, and it was a marriage that was doomed to fail. So my entrepreneurial spirits, as pushed me out, and for better or for worse, I failed, I succeeded, and I failed. Um, I had a .com. I invested in real estate during the real estate boom. I sold off about 6 months before the residential market crash, simply because 2 plus 2 didn't equal 45. And even though I'm not good at math, I was able to see that. After selling off the real estate, I decided to short everybody who did business with me. So I had to hire my own team of analysts. I researched it and we predicted with 20, 30, 40-page reports. Months in advance, we predicted the collapse of Bear Stearns, Lehman Brothers, the residential housing market, commercial housing market, commercial real estate market, the European sovereign debt crisis, Google booming up, et cetera, et cetera. About 96 calls altogether. This is from 2007 to about 2014. In 2013, at the behest of some of my subscribers, I looked into Bitcoin. They've been asking me since 2010, and I didn't do it. When I looked at it, my jaw dropped. I'm like, this is phenomenal. I saw programmable money. Everybody else saw, remittances at best or gambling, Bitcoin prices going up and down, et cetera. So I dropped everything I did, the blog, the advisory, the investing, and went head first down a rabbit hole into Bitcoin. But from the programmable money perspective, I saw self-sovereign finance and ability to be your own bank. What I did was I studied the programmability of Bitcoin, which is a very simple language, Bitcoin script. And then I hired developers to help me manifest what I considered the dream. So I took what it was called a ISDA, that's an International Swap Dealers Association agreement, basically the legal document that allows people to do swaps, which is a derivative, and that enables you to replicate the value of anything. I send you value, you send me value back, and then the winner keeps the difference, the loser gives up the difference, okay, of the changes in prices. That is about 96 pages. When creating a smart contract over that using the blockchain as a counterparty, being that the blockchain is very hard to corrupt and you can't cheat it, that 96 pages was congealed to about a page and a half. And that page and a half became the smart contract, and we created a blockchain swap in December of 2013. That's when we settled the first blockchain swap. That was the official creation of DeFi, decentralized finance. as applies to actual real corporate finance. We polished the application up, put it in the beta, launched it in beta in 2014. And very importantly, at the same time, we filed patent applications on our ideas around the world, you know, in all the major, what I consider the major economic jurisdictions. We went forward with that, ran out of money, despite the fact that I had a pretty significant track record. I couldn't raise the capital that was needed, which is interesting. We put the Bitcoin swap idea to the wayside, did an ICO in 2017, did another rendition of our basically peer-to-peer capital markets, ran into a disagreement with the regulator who, you know, had an impression of what we were doing that was very different from ours. Cost a lot of money, very difficult research what happened, and I can't discuss it in detail, but needless to say, you know, the large amounts of capital gone, you know, billions, okay? But had a restart. That was 2019 that happened. We had a refresh by having the first of the many patents that were filed granted. When that patent was granted, that patent basically gave me purview over DeFi. Most people don't realize that a Howard University graduate created DeFi in 2013, which is about 5 years before most people even heard of it, and patented it. That patent covers the Lightning Network. Now, everything that I'm saying, by the way, and everything that everybody else says as well, is their opinion, and everything I'm saying is my opinion. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a judge, it hasn't been adjudicated. I feel I know what I'm doing, but keep in mind, this is my personal opinion. So our patent covers the Lightning Network, which is the only true utilitarian use of Bitcoin outside of speculation. It covers parts of Ethereum. The patent was filed over a year before Ethereum was launched. It covers all the Uniswaps and the food swaps and the pancake swaps and the sushi swaps, the DEXs, most of the DEXs, almost all the blockchain swaps, even the lenders. Very, very broad purview. Okay, I was taken out by the litigation with the government, but what saved me was the possession of capital. Okay, they took a lot of the all the financial capital, they left the intellectual capital. Which one was more important? By far, the intellectual capital. So I'm going to segue off into a discussion I heard earlier where they were going through patents and IP. And the perspective was that you have entrepreneurs who work hard to come up with an idea. They try to launch this idea. And in launching this idea, a patent holder comes, exercises a patent, puts them out of business or says you have to pay X amount. That was being stated as if that is somehow bad. And look, it is bad if you don't hold the patent, actually. But this is the issue, okay? Those brothers and sisters here, those who feel that they may have a disenfranchised position in the global economic competition, you should be the patent holders, okay? You come up with a very good idea, okay? And if you feel it's good and you're implementing it by creating a product, the first thing you do is take ownership of that intellectual property, okay? I think a lot of people don't think of intellectual property as property, but it is exactly that, property. So to put it in perspective, you buy a home, you give cash for a home, okay? Do you take title to that home or do you tell the seller, don't worry about giving me the title, you keep it, I'll trust you? Never, okay? You take title to that home because you want proof of ownership of that home, that is your property. You buy a car, you want title to that car. You have a bank account, you don't put anybody's name in that bank account, you want your bank account on it. Stocks, bonds, any property. Intellectual property is real and it's just as valuable, if not tangible, than any other property. In the blockchain era, just like in the internet era, intellectual property is probably more valuable. Take a look at the top 5 of the Forbes 500, okay? Most of those people got there by real property or intellectual property. Almost nobody's gotten there by financial property, okay, financial capital, okay? Because the intellectual property throws off significant value when you have a paradigm shift, which is a shift from one major technology to another, and that paradigm shift entails the use of intellectual capital. Every paradigm shift has, you know, so we hear somebody say, well, I want to be in the technology sector. You know, with all due respect, they don't know what they're talking about. All sectors of technology sectors. You know, AT&T used to be a technology company. Ford used to be a technology company. When, you know, Henry Ford created the first Model T. the creator of a bottled water technology company, right? The technology is always novel and new when it's invented, okay? And as time goes on, it becomes ubiquitous and spreads throughout the world in general, and that's when the real value occurs. If you own that technology before it gets to spread, you participate in it. I said that the patent covers the Lightning Network protocol, which means anybody who uses that protocol, theoretically, I have a potential claim on. If you go back to another popular protocol, the Internet protocol, imagine if someone would have patented the Internet, which meant that anybody who used the Internet protocol, any transaction would have to give somebody a penny or a fraction of a penny or 5 cents or 10 cents, 10% of whatever the transaction was. That means that no matter how well Amazon did, you would do better. No matter how well Google did, you would do better because you have that cash flow of Amazon, Google, Netflix, Facebook, et cetera, et cetera. These are not impossible things because there's geniuses throughout the world, throughout Howard. You know, I went to Howard, I knew many geniuses, the different shades, colors, locations, et cetera. But that genius, right, it's still intellectual property when it's in your mind or it's intellectual capital. But to codify that property, you have to take ownership of it officially. If everybody did that, okay, then you become the property holders and you exercise your rights over somebody else. And hopefully you can build out as well. So now I'm going to come back from that segue and then go into what I think of as the state of crypto today. One big glaring issue I see is I think, well, first of all, from the way I see things, there's no true old school expert in crypto. The industry started with the publication of the white paper by Satoshi, 2008. He didn't launch the actual code to 2009. Very few people knew about the code. You know, it was very rudimentary and it was built up over time. But even right now, the Bitcoin code is not very, very advanced. Okay. But the early reporters that got a hold of it, they called it cryptocurrency. And this is the reason why, because Satoshi created a peer-to-peer internet currency, money, to trade from one individual to another without using the authority of a third party. That's the application he built. The application had to be built upon something. He built upon as a platform, basically an operating system, but a database-driven operating system called the blockchain. Okay, so he had the blockchain, Bitcoin with the capital B, and then he had Bitcoin. Okay, Bitcoin with the lowercase b. Bitcoin with the lowercase b is the application. Bitcoin with the capital B is a platform, the OS, the blockchain that was built upon. Okay, he built this with Bitcoin script, meaning that in the future he meant for it to do a whole lot more than just be dumb money. Okay, they discussed smart contracts, which is what caught my attention, contingent transactions, etc. As Bitcoin grew in popularity, I feel Satoshi's vision has been lost and corrupted because most of the attention now is on speculation and how high the price of the individual Bitcoin packets go. Okay, that's nonsensical. Despite the fact it's made quite a few billionaires, centimillionaires, decimillionaires, and millionaires. It's made quite a few, but that pales in comparison to where the real value is. And I'll get to that in a second, but to show how nonsensical it is, let's rewind back to the previous paradigm shift, which was also built upon a protocol, and that's the Internet Protocol, IP. And the Internet Protocol works in a way similar to Bitcoin Protocol and Ethereum. It uses little accounts of value or packets to transfer things. Internet Protocol, IP packets transfer information as data. Bitcoin and Ethereum transfer value along the blockchain. So, which would you rather, to have a patent with a claim on the Internet Protocol or to buy up a bunch of little tiny IP packets? Now, that's a rhetorical question because it's not interactive, but hopefully everybody doesn't have to think about it. You want a stake in the ownership or a stake in the productivity, if nothing else, of the actual protocol, right? You want to own the golden goose. You don't want to sit there and speculate on her eggs. You own the golden goose, or you have control, or you participate in the golden goose. You're getting eggs on the regular. Or you could pick 2 or 3 eggs up. You could fight over those 2 or 3 eggs. So that's how I look at the crypto industry with crypto assets, crypto applications, et cetera. I look at it as giant protocol or giant platforms, operating systems of which you can write applications on top of these operating systems. Some of those applications, and the vast minority of them, I add, are currency applications. But when you hear pundits, so-called professionals, practically everybody, the media, et cetera, they say cryptocurrency, as if somehow that's the majority of what happens. Not even close. And when you do that, you can't see the forest because there's some tree bark sitting right in front of your face. So I'm asking for everybody, if you can't move the tree, just take a step back and get perspective. And this perspective will show you a new world burgeoning. Okay, so moving forward past that, there was a question. I don't know how the question was. Should I address questions now? Because I could talk ad nauseum. Sinclair, tell me, how do you want me to do it? And how would I find a question?
Look, I saw some questions too. I told him to post it, but I want you to kind of go through your whole like presentation and then take it at the end if you could. Or do you think that, just let you finish your thought, please.
Okay, so a lot of people say, how can I participate in this? How do I learn about it? Remember, I said there is no old school, there's no OG professional or expert in the crypto industry at all, at least the crypto asset, cryptocurrency, blockchain industry. The reason is the industry itself is not old. Okay, let's say technically, best case, if you were Satoshi yourself, right, it started in 2008. If you were one of the early adopters, 2009. So let's say you're not the person or the people or the group that started it. 2009 to 2021, that is 12 years, okay? That's like saying, I'm an expert surgeon, okay? An expert surgeon went to school for more than 12 years to become a surgeon. So you don't even have somebody with the experience of doing surgery if you count schooling from kindergarten all the way up, okay? 12 years of academic schooling, middle school, high school, another 4 years of undergrad, that's 16, okay? Another 3 or 4 years of medical school, and then residency, right? So we don't even have someone who's at their first day of work in surgery, okay? Or a lawyer, or MBA. That goes to show you how new this industry is, okay? So everybody can only recount or opine upon what their meager experience is, including myself, and it is most meager for me than anybody else. Okay, so keep that in mind. If you want to catch up to everybody else, then you need to start right now, okay? And instead of going through the pop media or listening to a bunch of experts, I do believe you should listen to all opinions, okay? Because that's how you help form your own. Learn it yourself. And the best way to learn it is to actually use it. Take the actual assets, obtain some, buy some, earn some, do whatever you need to do it besides stealing it, okay? And use it. That's how you learn it. That's how I learned Bitcoin. When I did my ICO, I knew nothing but Ethereum, even though I was there at the day of the launch of Ethereum. So I simply got some Ethereum and started using it. Same thing with Bitcoin. Wanted to learn how the script worked, looked at the script, studied it, used it. Same thing with Solidity, or the other products. Now, fast forward just a couple of months, I started building my own products with a team of developers and analysts, but I'm the strategist. I put the stuff together. Everybody can do this, and learning how to use crypto is less difficult than learning how to use, in my opinion, Instagram. Well, okay, but don't create that mental block and don't think other people are smarter than you are, because there are a lot of experts that are making a lot of mistakes. A lot of these mistakes are born from the way people were brought up to view the world. I'm about to have discussions on things such as our IP, patents protection, and a lot of people find it impossible. You didn't create DeFi, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. A, somebody had to do it, so why can't it be me? And B, if there's really such a concern, you can look it up. There's a patent, you can simply read it, okay? But the preconceived notions are affecting people to the point where they don't see facts. They see what they want to see, or what they believe should be there. That is an advantage that you would have if you're competing, because the whole world is in a competition, okay? And you're competing with others to become more adept at this technology, more adept at the macro and microeconomics that surround it, more adept at the laws that surround it, et cetera, more adept at the geopolitics, okay? You remove those blinders while other people have it. Now you have leverage. You're running twice as fast as somebody else because they're looking at what they want to see while you're looking at what's there. That's very, very important. There's a more, how do I put it? There's a more direct way of saying it, but I don't think it would be politically correct for this particular venue.
But anytime I see or hear you, Reggie, I think about being powerful. I never think about victimness. So I'm just trying to say, how do we help make sure that that is something that permeates the every generation or everyone who's getting exposed to it? I won't make it a generational issue. I'll make it level of exposure to this as they walk through it with some confidence and not, I'm so scared of technology. I mean, what would you say? And if you could attach it to NFTs and DeFi, because those are things that are hot now. Talking about ICOs now, altcoins, this is kind of, the thing now to talk about are those two. And how do we get into it where we're competing? Because I've met a lot of these Europeans in these projects, and they're not that bright. There's not, I'm not saying everybody's done, but there's a level of like, oh my God. And they're really not, oh my guys. Anyway, I'm not gonna put words in your mouth.
Well, there are a lot of eyes on me and there are a lot of things I can't say, but I can tell you one quick part of my journey. Like I said, my battle with the government did a lot of damage to my family, to my children, to me, a lot of damage. But, large amounts of capital, I don't want to get into as much, but much more than you would think, than you would think, okay? But they kept the intellectual capital and they taught me a lesson. They actually did me a favor, okay? Because they woke me up, and I believe I was woke. I believe if I was born woke, I was definitely awake, going through my tribulation and living my life, because I carried a different path than most people in this industry. And as you said, you take a look at a lot of people who got hit. I'm not even going to opine whether they did anything wrong or not, okay? And this includes myself. But take a look if they did anything different from everybody else in the industry. And there is no delta that should wake you up. There's a couple of brothers who got hit and they created their industries. One created the biggest and most advanced exchange in the world. Right. And did nothing different from any other exchange. There is one difference, but we're not going to go there. Another one created the hottest thing in crypto right now. The only thing he did different was he was first, okay? But now that I'm awake, right, it reinforced the lesson I already knew. How do you conquer your fear? Realize what there's to be afraid of. You attain two things and you will control significant portions of the industry. Attain knowledge. Knowledge as in know how, right? Not know that, right? You don't want to learn a bunch of facts. That's irrelevant. You want to know how. A difference is know that is knowing how a bicycle works and if you pedal the bicycle and you keep straight and bounce each side, you could go in a straight line. That's know that. Know how is experiential, getting on a bike and riding. Know how is riding a bike, actually doing it. Know that is knowing about riding a bike. Much more money and power in the know-how. So delve in and learn it. Number two, obtain capital. Drained on my financial capital, primarily, I think, quite likely, because maybe, my opinion, I might not be a member of certain clubs. I'm not a big part of the clubs. I'm not welcomed. I maybe didn't do whatever it needed to do to get into it. And I thought I was a member of many circles. But because I, luckily, or by design, or by intellect, or drive, obtain actual intellectual capital, patented it, and turn that intellectual capital, intellectual property, I still may not be part of the club, but guess what? I have the deed to the clubhouse, okay? So when you own the clubhouse, not being part of the club is not nearly as exclusionary as it was before, okay? Now you can affect change if you operate wisely, and then you could have the financial capital to back it up, okay? So it's not a panacea, but I advise everybody, obtain knowledge, obtain capital. Obtain knowledge, obtain capital. Take your capital and turn it into permanent property, okay? The more you accumulate, the better you are. Money, right, is the least respected capital in the United States by far. It's taxed at the highest rate, it has the lowest return, and you could do the least amount with it, okay? But a lot of people think of money, the young Instagram crowd, they see people on the gram, throwing cash around, buying cars, doing this and doing that, having big bank accounts. That's ignorance, and not ignorance in a deprecating way. And I'm not trying to be offensive and insulting. It's a lack of knowledge, right? Instead of worrying about money, even if you don't spend it, even if you saved your money, you becoming poor. The more you save, the more money you have, the poorer you are year after year. Okay, wealthy people, go look at their bank accounts. You see it's relatively small. If you knew a private wealth banker, right, and knew someone who was really astute and wealthy, they'll tell you their bank accounts are very small and they keep them small. When they need money, when a wealthy person needs money, do you know what they do? They hit a credit line from a bank, right? They'd rather borrow money than keep a large amount of money in the bank. Why? Because their capital is invested in truly wealth producing assets. So they tie it up in real estate and intellectual property and patents. They tie it up in stocks and bonds, private equity, whatever it takes. Okay. But the last thing when they put their place, the last thing when they put their money is in a bank account. Okay. People in the middle class, the working classes, the upper middle class, the poor people, one of the reasons why they're poor is because they're not thinking in terms of wealth creation and capital. They're thinking as they were taught, and they were taught because the school system was not designed to create wealth creators, it was designed to create workers to make wealth creators wealthier. So they were taught, go work, make money, put it in a bank, be a consumer, etc. I tell my kids, be a producer. You don't consume, you produce, you make other people consume yours. You get that capital in, they get that money in, you put it in something that creates wealth, okay? And you keep as little cash as possible, enough to feed yourself and pay taxes, and a little emergency fund in case something happens. Over time, you see that creates a significant divide. And this is over a matter of years. And I don't mean 40 years, I'm talking in the single digit years. So if it could create a divide in single digit years, imagine 10 years or 20 years. Imagine a generation. Imagine 3 generations. Imagine 250 years. This is not including Jim Crow and the structural legislative demeaning of those of color. I'm talking simple math and economics. You throw on top institutional racism, Jim Crow laws, discrimination, simply outright killing, right? Now that divide is consequential, is almost immeasurable. But with every paradigm shift, when every paradigm shift comes, you now have an opportunity to reverse this because the status quo is confused. Confusion brings fear. Fear brings revulsion. Then they fight it. Okay. But when you try and fight something that you could defeat, it's one thing. When you try and fight a hurricane or force of nature, try and fight a tidal wave and see how it works out for you. Okay. So this is the opportunity for those who don't have it to attain it.
But I think you make an example. I mean, you show an example that I didn't notice. Somebody brought this up. How I still remember how difficult it was to try to even get a bank account for a cryptocurrency company as a startup. And I even remember that time they had that group of banks that came together in New York to do a study on all these things, and they didn't really do anything after that. And even when we first had our first blockchain summit, Facebook made it very hard, and Google made it hard for us to promote and advertise our event. And we're not even a scheme. This is a conference to convene our people, and we had to come up with all kinds. I think I might have called it Bitcoin, had to change the name. Like it was a whole bunch of things blocking us. But what I've seen lately is that it seems like they're willing to empower the banks to use crypto, squeeze out the little people, and lets a few big players, like they're really duplicating the other models. Like, there's going to be a Western Union, a MoneyGram. The bank's going to still do a little remittances, but they're going to like de-risk a little bit, but give these big institutions the space. I guess my point is, do you see now that as there's a mainstreamness in this space, that they're going to use that? Like I used to think that we're going to fight somebody, but they've just taken it over. Like I even had someone, this is a Cleb Messidor, talked about how they've even put something in this recent infrastructure bill where there'll be some transactional tax implications that if you're a large company, you know, you got enough money to make, you can get a department that just handles that regulatory issue. But as a smaller operator, it starts to make some of these activities cost prohibitive. Where do you see the future of some of the technology as it relates to the regulatory? If you can talk about it, only the parts that you feel comfortable, you know, discussing. What do you see, and how will that impact us?
Yeah, well, um, remember, technology's always been around. You go back to the caveman days, when, some dude or woman curved that rock or carved that piece of wood into a circle and found out that it would roll. That was bleeding edge technology back then. Okay. There was always technology, right? So go back 10,000 years, technology made things better and easier. But mankind's been the same for 10,000 years, right? Human nature doesn't change because technology changes. If that's the case, human nature would change every 30 or 40 some odd years, okay? But the same people who've been in power has been in power for the last couple of centuries, and every few centuries you get a flip, okay? If you take a look at the way things work now, like you said, you had a problem advertising, like Facebook and Google would block you because they were playing gatekeepers, and were playing gatekeepers at the behest of those in power. They're now, and Facebook got a taste of the technology, and they said, listen, we can do something, right? And they basically stepped out of their lane. They created Libra, which was DM, basically a stable coin, but a stable coin that didn't pay homage, right, to the global reserve currency. Instead, they want to aggregate all currencies and short-term bills and basically create a better dollar than the dollar. How'd that work out for them? And Facebook is the establishment, okay? But that's how high the fear and revulsion is. It doesn't matter if you're part of the establishment. We will kick you out if you step into this direction of fear. And this fear is totally uncalled for. All governments should be pushing blockchain tech as hard as they can. Okay, do you know how much money the CIA and the FBI and NSA, for instance, spend on tracking down criminals and trying to trace cash? The blockchain does it for you for free, but they're afraid. You know what they're afraid? Because somebody called it cryptocurrency. Probably some, 19, 23-year-old intern who just saw the white paper and just copied it over. But they actually understood how it worked. They'd be pushing this. Okay. So I don't want to go too deep into that. So how is it going to change? It's not going to change. Those who are in power will find a way to stay in power. What happens is every time you have a paradigm shift, you have a contingent who just refuse to bend, to bend in the wind, and they want to stand firm, and they get broken and they fall. They're called Luddites from England. If you follow, the Luddites and the gins. I think it was not cotton gin, could have been cotton gin, but basically the machines that were made to create fabrics. You had a movement where, and this is how it's written in the history books, but we all know who writes the history books, right?
Right.
Those who win that particular battle. But basically, when those gins came, those machines came to create this fabric, the people who did it manually didn't want to accept it. And so they burned it and they fought and they protested. But eventually they lost out because technology moved in. Now, if they would just learn to use the gins and the machines, they would have prospered. But instead they fought it because they wanted technological progress to stand still. It doesn't. This happens every time you have a major paradigm shift. Henry Ford and the Model T cars, you had guys with the horse and buggies, bitching and complaining, okay? Or you could have learned to drive cars and fix cars. The internet came, you had media, right? You had records, you had newspapers, everybody complained. If you embrace the technology and you become the first one to master it, you put everybody down. That's going to happen now with the banking system, okay? It's going to happen now with many other transfer systems. But those bastions that are generally in power, as long as they're willing to learn, they're going to stay in power. And if you expect technology to change human nature, you're going to be disappointed for at least 10,000 years in a row.
Go ahead.
Okay?
Well, let's check out these questions of DeFi. Reggie, are you working on any NFT staking DeFi ideas?
Well, I've been working on DeFi ideas since 2013, so always am doing that. Um, the the token that I issued in 2017 has received a lot of aggression from a regulator but the token holders, the community, are very strong. Okay, very strong. In the Telegram group, you could go to the Telegram group. It's very Taysom official. Telegram. You join the group. They're doing a lot of things outside of hiring lawyers and petitioning the SEC themselves. They're creating a DAO, a digital autonomous organization. Okay, that DAO is going to be designed to basically crowdsource everybody's intellect and allow them to find infringers of the patent, partners of the patent, etc. Those who find it and be successfully monetize it, they will get paid, okay, a salary or a commission for their work. That payment is going to be as an NFT, okay? The reason is, number one, NFTs currently are used for things that are cute, but not anywhere near scratching the surface of the potential, okay? Now we could create money that's spendable by only the designated recipient, okay? And it could be as opaque or as transparent as you want it to be, and it could be transferred back and forth instantaneously, depending on your blockchain, for pennies and in seconds. Okay, that's why we're doing it. If you go to Uniswap, Uniswap is actually doing that now. That's how they're compensating their liquidity providers with NFTs. So that's used that the company itself, Veritasium, is not going to be doing directly, but will assist the DAO, the Digital Autonomous Organization, in doing, using NFTs as guaranteed payment for specific individuals under specific terms. That's number one. And we may do it for many other things. NFTs as non-fungible tokens, I'm assuming everybody knows what they are perfect as ID cards, okay? Theoretically, there's no two people the same on this earth. It should always be an NFT. A driver's license or a passport? No, an NFT. Personal payment, an NFT. So anything that's individualized, and we will use that as basically individualized payments for everything that we do as we go in the future, and possibly fold it into the patented work and file new patent applications, et cetera. That's a long-winded answer, but yes, if that's
no, I love it. No, that's definitely a yes. How much of the current DeFi stack that projects use were things that you had already developed, liquidity pools, etc.?
We've looked at about 120 companies. We haven't found one that hasn't infringed yet, according to our analysis. Remember, infringement is something that you either agree upon or that you adjudicate in court. So either we agree upon it or we go to court and the jury and judge decide upon it. So remember, we're talking my opinion, but out of the 120 companies, we haven't found anybody. So a lot of the big names that you see in these tens and hundreds of billions of dollars, they're using, in my opinion, our technology. Now, to show you how this works, there's not a lot of, remember you saying you met a lot of people and a lot of people were in awe of these people that you met, but after you talk to them, you realize, you know, not to say they're not that bright, but they're people, they're average people. They're smart average people, but they're average people. And a lot of people get a reputation for being super genius. Remember Wile E. Coyote back in the days of cartoon? Wile E. Coyote, super genius. Not really though, not really. So we did we came up with this idea in 2013, patented 2014. We had an ICO 2017. There's another company that had an ICO, Bancorp, out of Israel, if I'm not mistaken, right? They came up with the idea of providing liquidity to non-liquid assets and tokens using an automated market maker or a concept market maker algorithm, basically a math formula that says you can put a bunch of assets in, someone take assets out, and the price automatically. That was forked, copied by a young dude from Brooklyn, okay, with a grant from Consensus, a $100,000 grant. He forked it or basically copied the code and created Uniswap, right? Uniswap became very popular when another person, who I'm not going to comment on, pushed their token on, and he had a lot of followers because he's very good at marketing, and he popularized Uniswap. Uniswap became the most popular DeFi application, I think, for trading at least, in the space. But then what happened? Another guy came in and forked. GitHub, you click fork, you could fork. That's how fast you could copy, you know, years or decades of work. You click the fork button. They forked Uniswap and created SushiSwap. Okay, $20 million of VC funding and 5 seconds of effort. Voila. Okay, SushiSwap then took a lot of liquidity from Uniswap. Okay, and a lot of users, and they had a different incentive mechanism. Then somebody else came, right? Financed by Binance. And they clicked that button, fork, and they forked SushiSwap. And you know what they came up with? Pancake swap. Pancake swap is probably the biggest DEX on the market. Not then it's Uniswap, and then on and on and on and on. So you just basically took one basic idea and copied it over and copied it over and copied it over. But guess what, though? That first idea, that was my idea, and it was patented. And the patent was issued in one very, very large jurisdiction, one of the largest economies in the world. And I expect several more to come, a lot more, hopefully, but knock on wood. But regardless, just that one jurisdiction, right? Many, many trillions of dollars. So with that in mind, okay, if that first company, Uniswap or Bancor, infringed, and everybody just copied that code over, and that's how the industry began, by copying code over, right? You put a little bug in that first one, and everybody just copies the bug over. It's just like COVID, it spreads, okay? But unlike COVID, hopefully the value accrues to the original owner. So when you ask how many of the companies or projects are using my concept or my IP, many of them. But because there's not a lot of originality, many of them are just copying over what they saw in GitHub. They click that fork button. Now, I'm not gonna go through the companies and the names, etc., but it's
Right.
pervasive.
No, I get it.
Yeah.
Okay, where does Reggie see DeFi going in the next 10 years?
It's going mainstream. Right now,
I.e., he said i.e. pools.
yeah. Well, the pools are one form of a model which are going to change. Right now, I'm positive that the SEC is really, really pushing. The threat
KYC?
envelope. Yeah,
Okay.
KYC, AML, threat envelope. You're basically, doing securities exchanges, etc. So that model is going to change some for the very, very well-funded companies, or the companies who are making a lot of money. And I don't think a lot of them are making a lot of money per se, because they're not pulling revenue yet, but they can afford it because they're well-funded by big VCs from the East and West Coast.
Right. So their volumes wouldn't be so high at this point.
Well, the volumes are very high. Uniswap does what, $3-4 billion a day. I don't know in volumes. I don't have it memorized. But that's going to change. The biggest volume, in my opinion, is in corporate America. Most people don't realize it, but Ripple's product is DeFi, okay? And their on-demand liquidity product and the similar products are, same as written in the patent, right? And they are used by American Express, MasterCard, Visa, Matsushita Bank, Daiwa Securities, some of the biggest institutions in finance, some of the biggest institutions in Japan, and Japan is real dollars. But that's not published in Cointelegraph and CoinDesk, and a lot of people don't look at it like that. But I follow the numbers. So more people are going to be using the DeFi mechanisms because it's more efficient, okay? But DeFi, as you see it now, like Uniswap and Compound, Gensler, who is the SEC chair, has made it very, very clear that's a persona non grata.
Now, what about, and then this is, again, we got any more questions, Yvonne? Can you talk to me about this inflation that's happening? Look, when you were doing that stuff, talking about the price of real estate in Brooklyn, like you were giving some real, forecasting. Is there any of that? What's your latest analysis? Reggie, I thought you were going to give me a tip, man. I'm trying to make my next 5-year plans. Me and my wife, I'm trying to get the hell I'm trying to get my Zimbabwe farm right. I'm trying to make sure I'm about to get a new plane. I'm trying to make some things happen. What's the deal, Pickle? I need to know.
Okay, so you want to get to the step to me for giving financial advice, right? Well, that's all right.
No. You're giving me future current affairs.
I'm joking. I'm playing with you. So here, we talk about inflation, okay? Inflation is high and it's here, right? So you hear the Fed chairman and you hear the Treasury Secretary say they don't see a lot of inflation. There are two ways to look at it. They're lying or they're lying a lot. So, those are your two options, Let's put it this way. What's 2021? Say 2018, 2019. You ever use Seamless?
No.
Or Grubhub?
Yeah.
So you order food there? Like you order food from like your local Chinese food store or something?
Yeah, man, it's the devil, bro. When I was stuck in the Dominican Republic, I lost like 60 pounds. I got back in DC, bro. all that stuff. Uber Eats, all them, man, it's the devil. You can order anything. Five Guys at 11 o'clock at night, and they come. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
horrible.
so you order Five Guys, you spend like maybe $20 at Five Guys, right? 2018, right? Take Uber, order a meal for 2 or 3 people from Five Guys, right? I'm not talking like the Burj Al Arab, you know what I mean, in Dubai. Talk about Five Guys from the corner. They're gonna hit you for 60 something dollars for fast food. Okay. Does that seem like inflation to you?
Yeah.
You know, literally at least twice, if not more, of what it would cost just 2 years ago. Okay. Inflation means you're inflating the money supply. You're putting more money into the supply of money and making it more, like you're blowing a bubble. Okay. When you increase the money supply, each dollar buys less, which means you have to use more dollars. Okay. A lot of people don't see the money supply increase, but they should see prices increasing. So a lot of companies are going out of business because they can't pay utility bills or their input costs, which is the money, the price they pay, the money they pay to buy the stuff, to sell, to make money, are too high. But the Fed says inflation is going up, but it's fairly stable. But they say that because they measure inflation differently. They say inflation has only went up a small amount, or inflation went down, except for energy and food. So basically, and housing. Okay. So energy, food, and housing, they exclude because of volatility. It doesn't matter how volatile it is, you got to eat, right?
Right.
When it gets cold, you need to heat your house, unless you're in Southern Florida. And it's even getting cold there now. Okay. I was in Miami, it was like high 40s, low 50s. So it doesn't really matter how the Fed measures inflation if they're going to take out the things that we all need every day. Now, I can understand that say inflation is stable except for the price of dry leaves in the front yard, because I don't really need that. But food, housing, and energy are things we consume every single day. It is the most important to us.
Mm.
But they exclude that because of volatility to come up with the inflation numbers. That's why the Fed can say, without technically lying, that inflation is tame or tamer. Of course it's tame. So basically, you're healthy except for the fact you're dead. You know what I'm saying? That's not the
Right.
way.
Yeah. We
That
don't
is
check
not
the
the
heart
way.
or the lungs. We check
Yeah,
something else. Right.
yeah. Like you
Wow.
say, doctor, how am I? But you're doing well, except for the fact you're going to die in 3 days. So get your stuff in order. So the dichotomy in the communication is used to take advantage of those who don't really understand the system, and the system is not complex. Right? Don't think everybody's smart, and you're not. You're just as smart, chances are, as everybody else, right? They're there because they strove to be there. So if you see prices going up, if you see it's harder to afford stuff, you know why? Probably because prices are going up and it's harder to afford stuff. It's just that simple. All right. Now, I foresee stagflation because prices are going up because the government is forcing liquidity in the system, printing more dollars. But at the same time, the economy is not doing well. You know,
And you said that
rent.
before. You even said it before the Trump got in trouble. You were talking about how the economy already was having issues,
Yeah,
and they were
yeah,
able to make it fugazi a little bit with the COVID. And
yeah.
now 2022, it seems like you're consistent on that,
If you
even though
come
they're
up to,
pumping money into it.
yeah, well, they're pumping money to prevent a Lehman moment. Okay. And so you're probably not going to get another Lehman moment. But, I remember watching this movie, Jurassic Park 2, when, they already had the Jurassic Park, the monsters ate everybody who was stupid, playing with monsters. You shouldn't play with dinosaurs, but that's what happens, right? So in 2, they recreated the park and recreated everything and said, don't worry about it. We studied what happened and we're not going to make those mistakes again. And the scientists said, yeah, I know. The problem is you're going to make a bunch of new mistakes, right? And that's exactly what's going to happen. So if you go to, in New York, you go to the highest end and most prominent shopping centers that draw a lot of tourists. You go to Soho, South of House in Soho in New York. You could go to Herald Square, where Macy's is. Go to Times Square. You could go to basically any hot shopping area. Just walk down the street, walk down Broadway. 50% vacancy rates. Half those stores are gone, right? Now you can see some stores are starting to open back up. But if you look at what closed, right? What closed were high-end stores that sold $1, $2, $3, $4,000, suits, $5,000 handbags. They're replaced with 99-cent stores. Big difference in margin, big difference in the amount of revenue, big difference in the rent that they can or will pay, big difference in the entire demographic. And that's just a few stores opening up. Most of them are still closed. And this is after the so-called recovery. Now, all those stores employed somebody at one point, right? All those stores threw off rent that enriched landlords. Those landlords took that rent and they paid mortgages, which aren't getting paid, right? You are a real estate investor or owner, right? You have a bunch of income producing properties. You go down to 50% vacancy for 2 years. Are you paying your mortgage? The only way you pay it is dipping in your pocket, or you're not paying it. But what the banks are doing is they're recasting the mortgages, right, with the government programs, and they're saying, well, we're going to create a forbearance program. Okay, and this forbearance program, you don't have to pay us for 1 year. Okay, and as long as you obey the terms of this forbearance program, we're going to restate your mortgage. We're going to have your mortgage paid as agreed. And that's what they call it, paid as agreed. So the banks don't have to carry it as a bad loan. It's a good loan. But how do you pay as agreed when you agree not to pay? Do you understand what I mean? So again, lies, right? Accounting lies, not hard lies, just use common sense, read the fine print. When I get an annual report, I take it, there's usually a nice cover, a little fancy stuff, turn it over, open it from the back, look at the little tiny fine print. I'm getting older now, so I got to use, little glasses or something, right? Look at the fine print. That's where all the juicy stuff is. Paid as agreed means you're not paying because you agreed not to pay. The banks are full of these loans. China's property market is collapsing. Okay, a lot of people say Evergrande, which was the second largest property company in the entire country, they're missing their payments, they're collapsing, they're very over leveraged, but they're saying it won't be a Lehman moment because blah, 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 and I believe it won't be a Lehman moment. They're not gonna make those mistakes over again. They're gonna make all the new mistakes, right? It's impossible for that not to affect the Chinese property market. Why? Because they're over leveraged. They have to either sell properties or they have to mark those properties down, right, in value. If they do that, then they're the second largest property owner in the country. All the other property owners have to do the same thing. And if you don't, if you go and buy a Chinese property that was once $30 million US cash, but that was just marked down to $15 million, what's your bid going to be? 35 million, 40 million, 30 million, or what?
I'm going to try to get by as best I can. Shoot.
No, you're definitely not paying more than 15 because they just marked the next guy down to 15.
Right,
I'm bidding 12. I'm like, well, I'll try 10, take it or leave it. They're hungry, I'm not. So I'm lowballing. So that's how it works, comparables and cash flows. And that's going to reverberate through all China. Now, Europeans and Americans can look over there and snuff their nose at China, ha. But look at the American market. Look at Soho. Look at Herald Square. This is Macy's. They did movies about this retail sector. That's how big and popular it is. Walk down there now, 50% vacancy rates. It might not be 50%, it might have to be reopenings, but look at what's opening. At the height of the pandemic, the only thing that was left open, you had what would have been 50% vacancy rates, but it was a little more than 50%, but you had 30% of one industry throughout all of Union Square. You know what that industry was? Banks. Banks.
What?
Banks. 30% of everything that was still open at the height of the pandemic, lockdown in Union Square, were banks.
And they were being underwritten by the government.
Yeah. And what's the bank's business? Lending.
Money? Lending.
So, yeah. So if 30% of the stuff that's open are banks and 50% of the stuff is closed, who are those banks lending to? Everybody's unemployed or off. So what are the banks doing? When you have an ephemeral, non-productive industry taking up 30% of real life property, that's a horrible sign. That's a collapse that's waiting to happen, or probably already happened and you didn't hear about it yet.
Wow. Well, look, I want to keep you out here all night because I can keep asking you about the future. I'm not calling you Notre Dame here. We got another question. How can Black crypto businesses come together to fight against the regulators or at least stay ahead of the curve as far as upcoming laws and lobbyist firms?
Well, I can say right now, I love who I am. You know what I mean? I'm a brother. I love who I am. But in this particular fight, there is no such thing as Black crypto businesses because the forces that are coming after you, and they're not coming after just the Blacks. Now, I feel they might be treating maybe a couple of us a little worse than others. You know what I mean? But I'm not
Yeah,
gonna.
and the penalties and fines are worse. I mean, a whole bunch of stuff worse. But okay,
Yeah.
okay.
But honestly, if you take a look at powerful, take a look at Coinbase. Just went public. They just went public. $60 billion valuation, right? They got a Wells letter and a threat to get sued, right? And when you get a Wells letter, you're gonna get sued, right? They threaten to get sued if you didn't pull the product. I know somebody, I'm not gonna name them, but I know him very, very, very well. Tall, handsome brother too, right? He got a similar threat, right? When you get the Wells letter, it's a done deal. Okay. So expect something to happen to Coinbase. Um, you have Ripple, probably the most successful crypto company, actual crypto company that did like an ICO or sold coins currently in the world. Okay. Embroiled, heated debate with the SEC. Same prosecutorial team that came after me. Same guys. Okay. Ripple is doing a phenomenal job. Ripple is just tearing them a new one now. Ripple's doing a very good job. You know, their law firm is on par, and they have a very good argument. But if it happens to Ripple, who has 500 banking clients, 440, 500 banking clients, including some of the biggest financial institutions in
But
the
they got
world.
so much pre-mined though, Reggie. They pre-mined everything.
It's irrelevant. Like the economics of their token is irrelevant. I'm talking about the battle with the SEC.
Yes,
You know
sir.
what I
Yes,
mean?
sir.
Right?
Yes, sir.
And the
Yes,
battle
sir.
with it, when I say successful, whether they pre-mined or not, they're generating revenue. You know,
Yes, sir.
they have,
Respect. Humbly,
yeah,
humbly, humbly. Yes,
yeah.
sir.
The 25 lawyers from White and Case at a minimum, right? Plus the support staff, and they're winning against the SEC. And the SEC is, I'm sure, is putting all the resources they have behind this. Because if they lose that one, then it's a real issue. Now it's going to, everybody's going to go back and, like, well, they didn't have jurisdiction, blah, blah, blah. So it's a real fight. Ripple's winning. When was the last time that you knew of ICO or a company that did an ICO that beat the SEC? Name
Never.
another one. Never.
Yeah,
You know,
never.
it doesn't matter whether you are right or wrong, whether
Right. It
you're
don't matter. They
it,
had nothing to
you're
do
not
with
going to
that.
outspend them, and you can't do business with that hanging over your head. They call
Right.
you a name and make an allegation.
It's
It's hard to win.
over.
Yeah,
It's hard to
but
win. Okay.
Ripple, from it looks like, and I'm looking at the judge. The judge is not taking the SEC. The judge sees what's going on, right? If you're a betting man and you want like 50 to 1 odds, you put your money on the SEC, because the rest of us are putting on Ripple because it looks like they're the ones that are winning, you know? But I say all this to say that this is not a racial thing. The government is afraid, right, of change. This change is actually in the government's best interest, right? They're afraid of change. Look at China, right? China is the leader in CBDCs now. They weren't the first. Bahamas, a black country, was the first, a black leader, right? Bermuda stands out,
Bermuda.
so I said the Bahamas, right?
Mhm.
But China is the most advanced, okay? China fears the industry. So they embrace the technology, they're centralizing it, but still embracing technology. So they are making this, the e-yuan, I believe it's mandatory. They're making it available, and I think it might be mandatory for using in the Winter Olympic Games, which is in the winter. So to prepare for that, what's the government doing? Do you know, in preparation?
No.
They're eliminating all the competition. Bitcoin mining is illegal. Bitcoin trading is illegal. ICOs are illegal. Okay, exchanges are illegal. Basically, if you're not doing the e-yuan, it's illegal. Okay, and they're doing this to clear the playing field. So when they launch, there will be no competition.
I did an interview just recently. We did this for yesterday with a brother and sister from El Salvador. We actually had talked to a brother literally in San Salvador and a sister here in DC. And they said the trick they're not telling is that there's like a little cabal of folks in the crypto space with money who got with the president and basically cut a deal. And they said the wallets that they gave the people were all centralized wallets where they didn't have the keys. And you had to, and again, we got to verify. Now, this is these folks are saying out loud of their mouth now. Look, now, so
Right.
I can't verify, deny, because I will do that afterwards, but I let them speak their piece. And because we purposely got folks from there. We want to get these, folks who done studied Negroologists. Look, I'm going to talk exactly to the people on the ground. And they said, look, we've been doing Bitcoin before all this. You know what I'm saying? Just, informally, we've been doing it. But when the government got involved, they didn't ask us. they took our tax dollars and bought Bitcoin. Now, they didn't even talk to nobody. They just took their reserves, bought some Bitcoin, and then told us they'll give us, if we use these particular wallets they have, they would give us $30 of Bitcoin. And then the guy said that there was some kind of glitch, and they made a big announcement. Well, we'll turn all the wallets off. And first was like, wait a minute, you can turn all the wallets off? Like they were like the government was trying to act like they're trying to be helpful by fixing the problem. We'll turn all the fact that they realized the government had that kind of control over their application, the folks was like, wait a minute. They've literally took some of all the best qualities of it. If you don't have your keys and you got to use their wallet, this thing don't even sound right. So literally this, I did an interview, actually it was pre-recorded, I want to say Tuesday of this week. And they literally said the introduction of this was done with the brothers of this current president. It was like an enclosed type group. The money was took money deferred from other whatever. I'm not saying governments use money well, but they literally bought, I want to say $20 million worth at the time of Bitcoin, and they used taxpayer money. And then they said to them, look, download this particular wallet that you have to use, and we'll give you $30. And they're already dollarized. Another thing people don't like, the project we did in Zimbabwe. That's why we were able to do our remittance project. It was easy because we were already dealing with a dollarized economy. They just went back, but literally it was Bitcoin to dollars. So it was already easy on both sides for us. But literally the dollarized economy makes it very expensive for a lot of things locally for the little people. So again, you throw in Bitcoin, if it was left to his own devices, could be very helpful. But it looks like the way they're using it is almost like a scheme, almost like another redistribution. Yeah. So I just wanted to say that out loud to you, because if we use the same mentality, and that's why we do the Black Blockchain Summit. We had some brothers who came on who were calling Bitcoin a Ponzi scheme. We had Black folks come here very skeptical of what the wealth creation really means. And one brother made a point that you can look at technology anytime in the past whatever years, and the wealth gap has increased. So to tell them that technology isn't helping anything, you can't show a data point for that. My only point to say that these are social scientists. I do think it's good for folks in this industry, be it them makers of whatever level they are, to have some critiques that literally can help us make better decisions, and not just the get along gang type decisions. So,
I actually want to address that. I heard that, but I wanted to address it. Got lost in the
yes, sir.
And that comes from, again, and this is all due respects, I don't know. Okay, it comes from not knowing. I was going to say ignorance, but ignorance has a negative connotation, so I think it sends a message in the wrong direction. It comes from not knowing. Every paradigm shift, I told you, every paradigm shift you have fear, but that fear leaves a gap, and that's when you can close or you can invert the wealth gap. Okay, but it doesn't happen because when there's fear of those who are in power, they communicate that fear to others by saying, Bitcoin is this and that. I'm not a Bitcoin maximalist at all. Bitcoin definitely has its shortcomings, but I'm factual. It is what it is, So saying crypto is a Ponzi scheme if you remember how I defined what crypto is. So if you say crypto is a Ponzi scheme and you believe it, you're also saying the internet's a Ponzi scheme. Can the internet be a Ponzi scheme? It's a protocol-based platform. So is math a Ponzi scheme, or the platform that math was used to build?
Well, I think he's using imprecise words to talk about some bad behavior in the space. Now, we've seen folks do scamming in the space. I think you're right with let's say it right though. I hear what you're saying. Be factual, be specific. Contextually, I think some of the push is, if a few brothers and sisters get this, great, but we still got to figure out the masses. If that's our concern, literally, a few of us can literally master this. A lot of us could master it if we did. I think the context becomes, it's still about organizing people. Like whatever tech, even our struggle to get traction is about organizing people. If we want to talk about, like, how do we get people to adopt what we're talking about? And I think part of the conversation, you get not you, but so many people get so tunnel vision, like this is the best mousetrap. Because of that, I'm going to win. Okay, maybe,
Yeah.
but you're
Yeah.
gonna still got to figure out the social, the Kwame Ture. We got to organize. There's a level of organizing that still probably, like even what we're doing with I Love Black People. We used to be called Bit Mari. I took the bit out, bro, because every time I dealt with regulators and banks, they was murdering me. And it's already hard enough to do a startup, Black, in Zimbabwe. I don't need to be fighting everybody who see the I see you. Like, bro, I'm trying to make payroll this week, man. I don't need nobody to close my bank down because they think, like, you know what I'm saying? Or sending me extra letters to verify stuff.
That fee I was telling you about, that fun,
so, So I said, look, we'll stop talking. We'll call it Bill Mari. And a matter of fact, I'm just going to talk about the community, because if we aggregate the community for reasons outside of technology, like literally we're aggregating the community to protect us from racial profiling. Again, wherever you stand on the spectrum, literally we're saying it's not just I love Black. We're literally here to protect Black people from racial profiling. The original Green Book was not about supporting Black businesses. It literally was making sure you didn't get lynched in Kansas.
Right.
So our whole goal globally is to build a community to make sure we have people who are interested in not racial profiling. So the businesses we do work with are those businesses that are Black, white, Asian, whatever they are, as long as we get recommendations crowdsourced that say that they're Black friendly, that's enough for us. The network that we connect them to build our marketplace, of course, for now we'll use credit cards and integrate Stripe and whatnot. But we understand there's lightning nodes. We understand ultimately the way we can actually connect them. There's a host of technology possibilities. But the first thing is organizing people around a common cause. When we did just cheaper than remittances, all we got was hustlers and quick money folks. When we talked about the Bitcoin, because we were using Bitcoin, we got those fickle tech folks. One day they like Bitcoin, next day they like Ethereum, next day they're AI, next day so they, as I was trying to get traction, those folks were fickle. Every day I came, Reggie, they would change up on me. You know what I'm saying? And then the cats I was giving referral links, they were hustling my referral links and doing bad things with me. So once I got into like the pro-Black folks, at least the person with the dashiki on, keeping it 100, they really don't care if you musty, if you crazy. As long as you tell them the truth, they ride or die.
Yeah.
It's easier to experiment with a ride or die community and try to get things right. As long as you keep it 100, even saying a Black Blockchain Summit, I got to be 100, or they're going to say, are you trying to hustle us with some weird stuff? So my point is, I think there is a part of this that we can't leave out that includes organizing people,
right?
No matter what that is. And I think we do get lost with that. And we do have, no, we don't have to. Everybody has the sovereignty to, I know you and I both believe in the sovereignty of the individual. You do what the hell you want, Black, I'm believe. But I'm just saying, to get to a level of scale, I think we do have to figure out how to bring community. And that community is dealing with a lot of psychological cuckoo bird problems. And if we're not speaking to some of that, I think it gets more difficult. But anyway, I'm believe.
Yeah, I agree. And it's not easy. I know it's organizing, I can get messages, I can speak, because I think maybe I speak differently to some others. I can have a big voice if I want, but consistently organizing follow-up is not one of my fortes. And I see it happen. I see that like celebrities are good at getting word out, but there's just so much going on in terms of ulterior motives or not understanding what they're promoting. And now you have government coming down on celebrities. I remember the first couple of dudes got hit, DJ Khaled and with
Mayweather got hit.
Mayweather, yeah. And I'm like, I know they didn't see that coming. They didn't know,
Right,
So if there is a way, like I know there are a few celebrities who are actually pretty strong private equity investors, and they got money in the things, but the communication is the key. And I'm not that. I'm the person. I'm very good at innovator, very good at analyzing and investing, and I can communicate well, but I'm not the person to bring, that group together. Once they get together, I can speak to them. So, you find out those groups. And now for the younger social media driven crowd, that's the key. Celebrities and social media.
But there's two things. There's the celebrities are good at mobilizing, but organizing still, like, and since I come from a cuckoo bird activist, like, we fought South Africa apartheid. Like, I'm one of those guys, Randall Robinson. Organizing still is just literally keeping that message and pulling people together. Even hiring folks, as a Black, there's this, black folks, even black folks talk to black folks wrong. There's stuff I would have an employee say to me, they would never say to a white employee. This is the truth, bro. Now I'm pro-black, but they know they wouldn't come out their mouth like that. But because I'm black, they talking to me. Like, you know, this ain't a democracy. You work for me. And no democracy, I'm gonna pay you this Friday. So this can't be, you won't do what I tell you. Now you got a choice. Ain't no slavery. You can leave. You can leave, but I'm not gonna pay you to stay and do what you want. It's just the truth.
I've been there. I've been there.
Come on, I mean, it's consistently like that. So I'm saying in this movie, like that's what I'm trying to say is, and I do notice some stuff different in your word, like even some of your like mindfulness of words. 4 years ago, 5 years ago, now you know you would go in and look. Let it go. I don't suffer fools, brother. Boom, let it go. But I see this, I'm like, you know what I'm saying? I'm feeling you. I mean, I still want to, I know you're still amazing, but I do see some contemplativeness in the approach. I mean, again, whatever that means.
And you're right, because there's a document that I signed by force that says, don't say X, Y, and Z. Now, things change. I go willingly change that document, but for right now, I don't have the calories to do it. You know what I mean? But you're absolutely right in what you're saying. You know, in discussing the patent and the IP, I'm not gonna lie, right? It's my team that assisted me. I'm proud of them, super proud of them, and I try and stay humble. But you could be humble and honest. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm proud of what I accomplished. You know, I'm letting more people come across, the engineers and everything. One engineer is like, obviously these knuckleheads haven't read your patent. If they did, they wouldn't be saying anything. He said, this is more foundational, more groundbreaking than a Satoshi white paper. Now, I have to read somebody else say that to actually get it, But I talked to a lot of brothers. You didn't do D5, Vitalik Beatman did this, and someone did that, and you couldn't have done it. I'm like, wait a minute, somebody had to create it, right? It was created, so somebody had to do it.
No.
So what is the problem with me doing it, right? And a lot of the pushback comes from places where I would not want it to come from, and it shouldn't come from. And the reason is because certain people have been taught that it couldn't have been you,
And that's the only thing, even when you were going through some of these things, man, I wish we were more mature as a community. I think people talk about this leadership thing, and I brought this up earlier in the conference, but we don't understand fellowship. And the same thing happened to Kwame Nkrumah. Like, he was literally ousted by his own people because there were folks that were able to get in there and start a whisper campaign. And then when he started being attacked, he was too vulnerable. I mean, we continuously see that most of our life, we're going to be following. Again, I'm not, I got a problem with authority, but my point is, we don't do enough, even manage this conversation. There's certain things I'm not going to ever ask you twice, because once you said it, I'm picking up what you're putting down. And as a follower of yours, I have a responsibility in this context to not do that, because you don't get a lot of Reggie Middletons. Like, you don't have any. Like, literally, we don't have any. We got one Reggie, and we're going to let him go down because we're trying to keep it real on nah, bro. We're not. What we're going to do, we're going to make sure Reggie stay able, willing, and with all the things he needs. And I think the only regret I have is that we don't, to be able to give you the support that you need besides having a conference, and we've recognized you. But I think we got to figure out how to be more supportive, brother. And because this stuff is tough. Like, this is why I just made a joke about making payroll and what they would say to us and they wouldn't say to, like that's the little micro side of it. But the macro,
I know exactly what you're saying too, because I did do that.
The macro is just as crazy. Yeah. So again, I mean, Reggie, we really appreciate you, bro. And whatever we can do to be supportive. We were honoring Dr. Harris in the School of Engineering, who is the one who got that science interdisciplinary building on Georgia Avenue that we met in. He passed away last year, but he was the first one to really give us access to the building. I think we paid like a little bit of money for the first time we were in there, but he so believed in what we were doing from the School of Engineering. we're going to be working with this group, College Track, to do some math tutoring for PG, Prince George's County. I mean, I know you know what PG is, but for the audience, Prince George's County in Maryland and Ward 8, Southeast, we're going to be focused on math to get more of our brothers and sisters that come to Howard. Right now, with our new president, and again, not new, our president, there's been great guy. There's not a lot of attention on local African Americans in that area matriculating like there once was. There used to be a good presence with Howard faculty going to like science fairs at local high school, just to, as they have their presence to be there. And we're trying to leverage alumni to be more helpful, even though as alumni we can be funny style too. So I'm not saying that that can get real weird too, but just want to let you know if there's anything that we could continue to do to connect folks or people to the things that you're working on. How do we let people get in contact with you? Do you have an email or where should they go to reach out and talk?
You can reach me via email, but probably the best place is the actual community. Veritasium is, if you go to Telegram, and before I even go to there,
okay,
I have to give you props and acknowledge that, when that thing first went down, a month later, you reached out to support me, said we're going to have you speak, no matter what was said about you. I appreciate it. I wasn't ready, to come up for air at that time, but, I appreciate it. I don't know if you remember, but you're still behind me, okay? And I complain and bitch a lot about, certain people who, turn different colors to turn their face, but I've had an outpouring of support from brothers and others, and I acknowledge that and I appreciate it, and I love y'all. It's hard when your own government turns on you, right? It turns on you hard, and it's even harder when those who you expect to stand beside you move, fair weather friends. But it's painful when that happens. And when that pain comes, sometimes it causes you to overlook the fact that 70% of the people love you, but the 30% who don't, for some reason, hurts more than the 70% that give you love. Human nature. I'm not a computer, I'm not a machine, but I do reach out and I appreciate it, to you in particular. Okay, my brother? So
humbly, big brother.
So
yes,
with that being said, go to download Telegram. I use only peer-to-peer encrypted communications. I think it's irresponsible to put your business out unencrypted so someone could just pick it up. That includes WhatsApp, which is peer-to-peer and encrypted, but backed up in clear text, because the company that owns it, they benefit from that. So if you go to the Telegram app, download it, type in Veritasium Official, and just join the chat group. There are 3,000 Veritasium community members, okay, who I allegedly did something bad about, but they're very supportive, okay? And you can ask all types of questions. Technical on Veritasium, macro, not about other tokens, whatever. You can communicate that way, or you can reach out to me directly at email, reggie@veritasium.com.